Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a podcast about the people, businesses, and newsmakers that make the Seacoast an American hidden gem. I'm Trey Farkas, and on today's episode, my conversation with Erin Holt, or as you may know her, the Funk'tional Nutritionist. Erin Holt is a force. She's a trailblazer in the field of functional medicine, the branch of medicine which tries to get to the root cause of health issues. With her work, she looks to identify problems in your body before they become bigger problems, whereas traditional medicine simply reacts to problems. Erin pursued this field because she had her own health battles that made her want to learn more. She will tell you all about that soon, but here is why she is such a force. On the surface, Erin leads a seven-figure business. She's been featured in the LA Times, has released nearly 400 episodes of a very popular podcast called The Funk'tional Nutritionist, and she has 120,000 followers on Instagram, where she posts informative and highly entertaining videos about gut health, hormones, blood sugar, and poop. But beyond that, and more importantly to Erin, she has graduated 100 practitioners via her Funk'tional Nutrition Academy, an intensive course she designed for serious health professionals. She and her team also offer personalized one-on-one functional care so that clients all around the world can get back to feeling like their best selves. Erin is highly educated in all things functional nutrition and medicine, but she is also deeply spiritual. Formerly a manager of my beloved Three Bridges Yoga, Erin is all about the mind-body connection and bringing people back home to themselves. With everything Erin does, she urges people to stop listening to the noise and to start listening within. Today's podcast is presented by Sarah Oleson Yoga and Samonas Realty. And in this episode, Erin and I discuss how she grew her $80,000 Seacoast small business to a multi-million-dollar global company, plus the medical gaslighting women face, why hormone replacement therapy is the new kale, how to figure out which quote-unquote experts we should trust online, and so much more. But before all that, we begin with the very serious health issues Erin grew up with. Listener discretion is advised.
Wait, do you always make house calls?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I make a decent amount of house calls.
I was wondering about that. Thanks for being in my home in the middle of nowhere. I live in Nottingham, New Hampshire.
Okay, I wasn't going to say I didn't want all the Seacoast Stories groupies to flock to your house, but you said
Could you imagine? I struggled with eating disorders growing up. So I was a pretty chunky little kid. And when I hit adolescence, I just grew taller and leaned out naturally and got a lot of really positive feedback and reinforcement for that. And I'm kind of like your classic eldest daughter, type A perfectionist. I live for external validation. So I'm like, okay, keep doing more of that. You're getting the gold star, do more of that. And so that's really what began my, 13-year battle with disordered eating. So it was a lot of food restriction at first, anorexia, and then it sort of blossomed into bulimia. And yeah, that was a rough one, but it's what set me on my path to go to school for nutrition and dietetics, because I was like, okay, well, I'm a problem to be fixed. And if I just learn how to diet harder, then I can fix this disorder that I have with food. And I thought that just going to school for dietetics would solve that.
Right.
It didn't.
Right. Now let's not glaze over those 13 years. Did you realize that you had a problem?
In the beginning, no. In the beginning, it was, I thought what I was doing was really good. And then it stopped working because you can only restrict harder for so long. And I started trying to get healthy. I really looked at health through the lens of leanness and thinness. I was born in 1984, so I grew up in the 90s, and that's what women were really told. I think there has been a sea change in the past few decades, but in the 90s, we were like, you got to be skinny if you want to be of value. And so I didn't think that I was doing anything wrong. I thought I was doing everything right. Once the bulimia took hold after a few years, I was like, this is a problem. I can see that this is a problem. And I tried to resolve it on my own and could not. And then I'm like, oh, this is more of an addiction, actually. And that's when it got really scary because I'm like, I don't know how to fix this.
Right. So just take me into an average day of having bulimia? Like, what were you doing restriction wise?
Oh my God. I don't know if I've ever talked about this before. I'm pretty open about my struggles with bulimia, but like it would get to a point where I was binging and purging up to like 8, 9, 10 times a day. So there was just this emptiness. It wasn't like true physiological hunger, but this emptiness, this anxiety, this hole in my life that I was trying to fill. And the way that I knew how to do it was with food. And so I would binge, meaning I would eat like thousands of calories in a sitting and then purge, and it would come up. And some days that would happen like multiple times throughout the day.
What was the hole that you were trying to fill?
Great cue. There was a lot of insecurity in myself. There was a lot of self-hatred. I think it's interesting now when one of like the critiques that I get on my character, my personality is she's so full of herself. She's so, she thinks she's the best. She's so egotistical. When I first started the podcast, I would get negative reviews saying exactly that. And I'm like, would you prefer I hated myself? Because I lived most of my life that way and it was really shitty. So I'm a woman who happens to kind of like herself, and like collectively, we're not like really great with that. But it was a lot of self-flagellation, a lot of self-hatred, especially like as I started to get into my like early 20s. My friends, my peers kind of had it like figured out. They were taking like the traditional path. You go to a 4-year school, you get your degree, you get your job, you start the rest of your life. My path did not look like that. So I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so different? And that just created so much unrest and discomfort in myself. And food was the way that I made myself feel comfortable.
Right. I've heard a lot of people who have struggled with disordered eating say that it's really a struggle with control, because you feel like your life is falling out of control. And what is one thing you can control? You can control your food and what you look like. And to be able to do that in a world where it's so many people want to lose weight, to be able to have that superpower is very empowering.
Yeah. And what's interesting about bulimia, where it differs from more of a restriction model of disordered eating, is that you usually are like pretty like average weight. You're not underweight for the most part. So it's kind of a silent thing. When I finally came out of the closet and asked for help, and I told my mother and I told my stepfather and I told my best friend, they were shocked. There's so much shame around bulimia. It is something that is like really kept in the shadows. Whereas anorexia, you know, it tends to be a little bit more present. This is definitely a bit more silent and unobvious.
Right. So the people in your life, people closest to you, they weren't really picking up on it until you said it.
Correct.
Wow.
People didn't know. I was kind of looked at as like a little bit of like a health nut. I was going to school for dietetics. I was very interested in health. So people just thought what I was doing was healthy. And then I hid all the stuff when nobody was around and nobody was looking.
Okay. So you went on to go study this stuff to try to fix yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the bulimia was kind of like throughout my college years too, but I did that. I mean, I went to a lot of schools. When people are like, what college did you go to? I'm like, all of them, every single one. I went to Northeastern in Boston right out of high school. I went there for business. And then I went to UNH, and then I moved out to California. And then at a certain point, I think I was like maybe 22, 23. I was like, I gotta like, everyone's moving on with their life. Like everyone's like being an adult, and I still am floundering around and have no idea what I want to do. So I actually went back to school to go, I went to Framingham State, and that is where I studied nutrition and dietetics.
Okay. And what exactly did you want to do with that?
I had no idea. I wanted to fix myself first and foremost, but I wasn't like, this is the trajectory of where I want my career to go. And in fact, when I graduated, I spoke with one of my counselors. And at that point, I was very much in the alternative health space. That is not where any of my peers, my colleagues, or the school like was headed. That's where I personally was headed.
And 20 years ago, alternative is
how old
weirdo.
Do you think I am? 20 years ago.
You say like when you're like 20 years old?
Okay, I graduated. Okay, yeah, that's fair. I graduated that school in 2010. So I got my degree in 2010. So it wasn't exactly 20 years ago. But yeah, there wasn't as much of a thing as it was. And so when I was telling my counselor, this is kind of where I see my career going, she was like, oh, that career doesn't exist. So I'm like, oh, I guess I have to like build it myself. And that's what I did. So when I graduated, I really had to take a look at my life. That's when I started practicing a lot of yoga. I started studying meditation a lot more. I also became a health coach. And when I was studying to become a health coach, you really look at things very holistically. And your health isn't made up by just your physical body or what you're eating. So I had to look at other aspects of my life, my relationships, what I wanted to do, what fulfilled me, what lit me up, my socialization, all of it I had to look at. And that's what I started addressing. So I took the focus off of my physical body, what I looked like. I took the focus off of my food and I put it on literally every aspect of my life. And that is how the eating disorder just kind of went away. And I don't mean to oversimplify it, particularly if somebody's struggling and listening to this, because that was quite a journey. But it wasn't until I took the emphasis off of myself and my food and put it on what is actually fulfilling me, what's making me happy, that I was able to end that struggle with disordered eating.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. And that's actually a sentiment that's been shared on this podcast by multiple people, is that, they struggle with eating disorders and then found some of the things that you mentioned. I'm very curious, just as a new yoga teacher, how did you really come across yoga and meditation?
When I was in college, I met a woman on Craigslist. Conversations.
What a time.
I know this could go in a lot of different directions, but she was looking for a nanny. She was looking for a babysitter and I was looking to babysit. And so we just found each other on Craigslist. She is still a very good friend of mine, a mentor, and she actually does HR for my company. So this is a long-standing relationship. But she owned a meditation school. So I babysat for her children. I knew her, obviously, and I started, I went to a school, a brick and mortar building, and studied once a week meditation. So I just kind of fell into it. It was very serendipitous, I think.
And you became a yoga teacher too.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that?
I was just yoga was part of helping me recover from the eating disorder. And honestly, it's a little bit of a gruesome way to talk about it, but I had to go because where I was working at the time, I had to be at work at 9 a.m. And so I had to go to early morning classes. So I usually would go to the 6 a.m. class. And the reason that I wanted to do yoga is because I was running a lot and I needed to stretch my hamstrings and my calves. And I just felt so much better when I was practicing yoga, as one does. And I realized that if I was up late binging and purging, then I couldn't show up for a 6 a.m. yoga class. So yoga really helped me kind of show up for myself. And then it really brought me into my body quite a lot. And, even just where's my foot supposed to be in space? My proprioception isn't really great. I'm pretty good at dipping out of my body and saying, bye, I'm going to go disassociate now. And so yoga brought me back into my body. And when you spend more time in your physical body, you begin to build more of a rapport and a relationship, a positive relationship with said body.
Right. And to be able to do all of the difficult things that running and yoga require, you need to be strong. And
Correct.
When you have an unhealthy relationship with food, it can be very difficult to do those things well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So why did you want to teach it?
I think I'm an educator at heart. Growing up, my Aunt Patty, who really raised us, she was a first grade teacher, and she would take me to the teacher store, and we would get like teacher supplies, and she brought in desks and chairs and stuff, and I would pretend to be a teacher just because I loved that. I loved educating. So if I find something that I love, I want to share it with people. That's just very innate to who I am, and so I think that was kind of it. I was so scared, the thought of getting up in front of a room and saying words to a whole room of people made me want to vomit. I would get the rumbly dumps every single time I would teach classes, a great cleanse. I would get so nervous, but I was this is what I meant to do, is to share this with people. So it was that.
Yeah. As I've familiarized myself with your story, I find knowing the Erin Holt that I know now, which is the only version of you I know, but just hearing you talk about the health issues that you've had, that you struggled with self-confidence, a bad relationship to yourself, that you were uncomfortable getting up in a room full of people. I can't imagine that version of you.
Yeah, I mean, she's still there.
But you're so, I had told someone that I was talking to today, and they were like, ask her, how are you such a badass? And anyone who knows you or is familiar with you would probably describe you that way as well. But you haven't always been a badass, apparently.
I think I've always been a little bit of a badass. I've been a little bit of a rabble rouser. I'm not afraid to say hard things. I'm not afraid to have hard conversations. I'm not afraid to stand up for myself and stand up for the things that I care about and the people I care about. I think that's always been true. But I think they can, you could coexist.
Yeah.
I contain multitudes, but the idea of like putting myself, I think a lot of people are afraid of public speaking. That's a typical fear. But it's just like, you have to believe in what you have to share. You have to believe in what's in your heart so much that you're willing to do the scary thing. It's not that I don't get nervous or I don't feel fear. I just believe so much in what I have to share that I'm willing to overcome the fear. I'm willing to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah. I've only taught a couple yoga classes at this point, but that is something that I definitely latched on to. And also, we're so distracted and there's so many things going on today. To lead a yoga class well and safely, you have to be so dialed in to both what you're doing, what you're cueing, what you're saying, but to the energy of the room and making sure that you are leading everyone else safely through it. And so for me, it's been such a gift to be able to just be able to do something that requires 100% of your focus and presence.
Yeah. It's like a healing for you too. Like
absolutely.
Whenever I teach anything, a class, like I don't teach yoga anymore, but if I am leading a workshop or leading a breathwork class or something, like I'm getting just as much of a healing
teach
from
what
this.
you need.
Yeah.
Anyone who teaches anything, teach what you need and you'll teach it well.
Well, like teach what you've mastered, maybe.
Yeah.
Teach what you are currently embodying. Because I think there's a lot of people, a lot of talking heads in this space that are just really good at running their mouths. But I'm a big show me. Don't tell me, show me. Model the behavior to me. Don't tell me what I should do unless you're actively doing it in your own life. So I think, yes, teach what you need, but also teach what you are actively embodying.
All right. So you did finally get over the eating disorder issues, but then you would go on to have some other health issues as well around the time that you had your first child, right?
Yeah. So I graduated school. I was teaching yoga locally. I also worked at the Portsmouth Health Food Store.
R.I.P.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God.
I've heard great stories about this place.
The best. Super dysfunctional. But what isn't, you know, but also / the best. And that's where I met my husband. And so
at the health food store.
Yeah. He worked across the street. He actually
at the Goat?
No. So it was Identity, our friend Chris Rice, who recently passed away, ran Identity, which was a skate shop. And you don't have to cut this out because shout out to Chris Rice. He's a real pillar in the community. He was, and his family's is just the best. So my husband left a marketing agency in town because it just was the end of the road there. And he does graphic design and he started his own thing and just didn't have the funds to rent out office space. And so Chris let him rent out the basement of Identity. And by rent, for $0. Yeah. And so that was right across the street from the health food store. So my husband would walk by and see me. And so he started coming in and he's like, I'm going to show her that I'm eating health. And he would get fried tofu and chips every day for lunch. And so we struck up a bit of an alliance there because we would come in, we would chat, and that is how I met my husband.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So as someone who's single and on the prowl, and you meet someone who's at a store or provides some type of service, you meet them in a professional setting. I'm always how do I approach this? Because they're at work. I don't want to cross any boundaries and whatnot. So how did he pursue you?
He just kept coming in, showing up. And then I would recognize him and I would chat with him.
And just buying stuff he didn't need or want anymore, but just wanted to hang out with you more.
Yeah. And just
I'm sure that's it. Yeah.
And then I'm how did I think at one point we exchanged Facebooks. And we started our relationship on through Facebook Messenger. He started
poking you, didn't he?
Yeah. Is that a thing? I guess. Eventually, we would message each other on Facebook, and then we met up in person, and the rest is history. So anyway, we got married.
Okay.
We had a baby. We're checking all the boxes. Life is good. I'm running my nutrition practice on the side. I'm teaching yoga and things are great. We move here to Nottingham. And right after I have my daughter, I start getting really sick and can't really pinpoint why. I had struggled with digestive issues on and off and just fatigue and a lot of different random symptoms, and was always told nothing's wrong with you, nothing's wrong with you. I started to feel a real hypochondriac, and because of that, I internalized that it's all in my head. And so I didn't really want to bring it up because I'm like, I guess this is just what it's like to be a new mom. And eventually I did bring it up to my doctors and they kind of were like, yeah, this is what it's like to be a new mom. Like we're really collectively okay with moms feeling like absolute shit in women in general. So they're like, yeah, maybe you should let the baby cry it out. Maybe you should stop breastfeeding. Like there wasn't really a whole lot of solutions for me. And that went on for a year. And finally, I basically just like dropped the hammer. I went to the appointment. I had this nurse practitioner. I had never met her. Sweetest girl, so young. And I was like, I'm like not leaving this office until I get some answers. Like none of this is normal. This is not okay. I was changing my daughter's diaper and my thumb blew up to twice its size. And like, that's like not normal, right? And they were like, maybe it's Texter's thumb. Like they had all these like random answers or things for like, and it was all like, you're doing something wrong. So anyway, they ran a lot of blood work and long story less long, I found out that I had an autoimmune condition known as systemic sclerosis. So I met with a rheumatologist and he was basically like, you're going to be on medication for life. Like this could kill you. This is scary. You have to like really be super careful. But that was it. It was just medication and not a whole lot of other solutions. And that didn't really sit super right with me. On the one hand, I was so validated because I'm like, I knew something was wrong. And rather than being told one more time that it's all in your head, it was like proof, like tangible proof, like there is something wrong. But then also I'm 30 years old. So like you mean like there's nothing I can do for myself? That didn't sit right with me at all. So I decided to try to figure out why that was happening. Autoimmunity is like a really big question mark in the conventional health space. I don't need to tell you that.
You can't see it.
You can't see it, but also there's not a whole lot of solution or a lot of answers to why. So the body just starts attacking your own tissue. Why? So I really set out, I'm a questioner at heart. So I set out to try to find those answers. And that's what led me to functional medicine, which was like 10 years ago, totally not what it is today. But I did a lot of continuing education in that department because I was trying to find the root cause of my own stuff. And because I was working with nutrition clients, I started to weave that into my practice, got a lot of really good results. And I'm like, oh, there's like something to this here. And that's when I started the podcast because I'm like, this is something. Like we're on to something here. Like I'm feeling better. My clients are feeling better. Let's talk about it.
Right. Okay, I want to backtrack to that year where you were living in what the hell is wrong with me? Am I going crazy? And what the doctor specifically were telling you. And a term I've heard you use over and over again is medical gaslighting. Happens a lot in the industry. What exactly do you mean by that?
Like, you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. Take a Xanax.
You're imagining it.
You're imagining it. This isn't real. Or like it's normal to feel this way. Like you could be like dragging limbs into your doctor's office and they're like, labs look good.
Yeah.
So they're just basically like, we have no solutions for you. And we don't even really believe that this is real. What you're experiencing isn't real. Your lived experience isn't valid and it doesn't matter, is the perception that a lot of women in modern day world navigating healthcare experience.
Why women specifically?
Oh my God, how much time do you have? There's a lot of research to showcase. First of all, a lot of our medical research is based on male bodies. You guys are easier to study. Like there's not as much going on.
Yeah, we're less interesting.
A little less. It's just very easy to study a male body. Or I shouldn't say easier, but it's easier without the hormonal fluctuations. You're on like a 24-hour clock. We're on like a 28-day clock. It's just different, you know? And so there isn't as many answers and isn't as many solutions because of that. But again, it just comes back to women are just expected to be the peacekeepers and the people pleasers. And we internalize and we learn at a young age to go dark on our own needs. And so when we start squawking up about our own needs, it's met with this like, whoa, what's really, like this isn't the norm. This isn't what we should be doing. And so it's very hard to advocate for yourself. So you learn to sort of divorce yourself from your body. You stop advocating for yourself because when you do, you're told that this is normal, right? Like there's nothing wrong with you. So then you start to question, like, am I going crazy? I remember one of my clients said to me, I was gaslit so hard, I started to gaslight myself. Like, am I crazy? Am I just making this up? Is it really not this bad? And so it just becomes, you don't talk about what's going on. You hold it close to the vest. I mean, women from a young age are taught that our bodies are kind of like yucky. It's something to feel shame about. It's something to hide, whether it's our menstruation or the fact that our body, changes. All of that.
Who's teaching you that?
Society. I mean, it depends, like people in authority. So it could be your parents. It could be your peers. It could be school. It could be church groups. It could just be society at large, the media. We are learning to feel shame from a very young age about ourselves and our physical bodies. If we have desires, they're wrong, whether it's a food craving or a sexual desire, or like, it's just like, shut it down. And so we shut it down. And so we divorce ourselves from our bodies. We like kind of step outside of ourselves. Our bodies are always communicating with us, but we kind of cut ourselves off from that communication. And so rather than listening to the whispers of the bodies, we like wait until they become screams. So by the time we go to the doctors, it's like something's usually pretty bad. We're not like, I feel a little off, because when we say I feel a little off, they're like, there's nothing wrong. And so we're waiting until it becomes like a big problem. And that's, essentially what I did. It was like a really, really scary, serious disease by the time somebody took me seriously and by the time I was willing to advocate enough for myself. I'm like, I had to wait till it got so bad before I was like, no, like something's wrong here. I'm not leaving. We have to figure this out.
Right. And were these mostly male doctors that you had, or
Nope.
did you have female ones?
Nope.
Okay, so even the female doctors who should be your allies were also telling you this.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the deal. When I think it's really important to float this out there. When I'm having these conversations, it's never to criticize doctors or any type of medical professional. You don't go to school for medicine unless you have a desire to help somebody. You don't dedicate your life to medicine unless you actually care, you want to make a difference, and you want to help people. So it's not the individual that I'm ever criticizing or critiquing, it's the system. And they are working within a very broken and dysfunctional system. And many medical professionals will tell you that. They don't have time to sit and to listen and to get to know somebody and to like really create the space that somebody needs to like share their full story. It's just not part of the medical insurance model. Like it's not available to them either. So, they're doing the best they can given the circumstances that they have, I think.
Last January, I went on the trip of a lifetime. It was to Mexico, and it was led by Sarah Oleson, who is the queen of the yoga retreat here on the seacoast. We would do yoga twice a day. We would eat beautiful meals prepared by world-class chefs with fresh and delicious ingredients. I would be drinking out of coconuts, looking out over the ocean, watching the whales jumping, and then after that, would maybe go on a walk or a hike or to a waterfall, go swimming in the ocean, got a massage, and I made a whole bunch of friends on this retreat at the dinner table and in the yoga rooms as we did some real deep soul work to get to know each other on a human level. These are such powerful experiences that Sarah creates on the retreats that she leads. She leads retreats all over the world, Mexico, Costa Rica, Peru, even local ones like Maine. She led one to Vermont this past year. If you could use a little more peace in your life and a whole lot of fun, I strongly recommend you check out SarahOlesonYoga.com to see what's coming up. And if you see something you like, you can use the code STORIES to get $100 off the trip of a lifetime. Again, that is $100 off with the code STORIES at digital checkout. I'm going again to Mexico this coming January, and I would love to see you there. Thank you so much to Sarah Oleson for supporting this show. Now back to today's conversation. All right, so you eventually discovered functional medicine, functional nutrition. What exactly was the rabbit hole that led you to that? Because again, this wasn't widely discussed then.
Well, it's just root cause, like asking the questions why. Conventional medicine is really good at saying you have this, but it doesn't ask the question, but why do you have it? And that's what I wanted to know. Okay, you're telling me my body's turning against itself. Why is it? And there's multiple factors for that. Some of them are physical. Some of them are rooted in the emotional body. Some of them are mental, mindset, my beliefs about myself. And I had to look at all of those to truly heal my physical body and to put autoimmunity in remission. But it was really starting with the question, why?
And do you know why you had this disease?
For me, some of my triggers, my root cause triggers, were what was happening with my gut. So some of them were very physical. I have had gut issues since I was little. Again, product of the 80s and 90s, represent antibiotics all day. So, my microbiome is like two little whispers of bacteria in there. So there was some things that I had to address from a gut level. My HPA axis, so my hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, my stress response was really out of balance. I had to essentially teach my nervous system how to not respond to everything like it was a 5-alarm threat. I really love the study of psychoneuroimmunology, which looks at how all of our systems are interconnected. So our mind, our thought, but also our stress response, also our immune system. We can include the gut in there. We can include the endocrine system in there, our hormonal system. So I definitely had some real physical things that I need to address. I didn't have wonderful detoxification pathways. So I was very, very, very sensitive to chemicals, to smells, to things like that. So I had to support my liver and my clearance pathways, so physical body stuff. And that is really where functional medicine excelled for me, is helping me to have the tools to investigate those through functional lab testing. And I got better physically. I got a lot better. I would say 80% of the way there. But the 20% was fear of a flare-up, fear of getting sick again. I was very hypervigilant. Is this, if I walked into a room and they had a Glade plug-in, I'd be like, is this the thing that's going to make me sick? And it's funny now, but it's not funny when you're living it. And so many people are. That health hypervigilance, I call it health anxiety, because you've been in such a bad place that you're terrified of going back there. And what I really needed to do for that 20% is look at the other bodies, not just the physical body, but mental, emotional, energy body, spiritual. And I started to ask the question, okay, so I had this raging eating disorder for a really long time. And then I got better. And then I got an autoimmune disease. What gives? And when I was diagnosed with autoimmunity, I was doing all the right things. I ate really well. I meditated. I did yoga, all the right things. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I had to start looking at my beliefs that I held about myself. Autoimmunity is self-attack. So I had to start looking at, where am I doing that to myself? Where am I shooting arrows at my own heart? Where are my self-flagellation thoughts? And they were everywhere. I'm so hard on myself. I'm so hypercritical. It's why it's so funny when people are like, she thinks she's the best. I'm like,
I actually hate myself, guys.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And so I had to really look at that and start to unpack, where did those beliefs come from? There was a lot of beliefs that were very, very subconscious, meaning I wasn't even aware of them. So I had to start to kind of go into the underbelly of stuff and bring it up to the surface.
How did you go about doing that?
A lot of different modalities, breath work, hypnotherapy. I've done all the trainings. I'm just I love education. I love to teach, but I really love to learn. And so I just a lot of different somatic release practices, just a lot of different modalities.
Yeah. When you were doing this deep inner excavation, what were some of the biggest things that you learned about yourself?
I had to look at a lot of my own conditioning and my own program, which is why when you ask why women, there's a huge gender bias in autoimmunity. It affects women way more than men, 2 to 1. And it's not just because of hormones. Hormones are for sure a key factor in it, but I think it's really how we grow up, how we're conditioned to believe about ourselves, caretake everybody else at the expense of your own needs, put your needs last, put your needs on the back burner. And then once you become a parent, that just 10x's. And so I genuinely feel so fortunate that I got diagnosed when I did, because I had to choose to make myself a priority in my own life. I had a 1-year-old baby and I'm I have to be the priority, even over above her, which is pretty wild. So I looked at all of the ways where I wasn't allowing myself to do that, where I was letting other people write the story of my own life. Authenticity is to be the author of your own life. So where am I letting other people tell me who I should be, how I should be, what I should do, what I should say? I believe that my illness gave me a voice when I couldn't use my own, when I couldn't say no. My body gave me the ability to do it. So let's say like I just knew it was going to be like too much, or I didn't want to do something. I would like almost like use my illness as an excuse. Like, well, I might get sick if I do that, so I'm not going to do that. And once I realized that was a layer of my healing, it's called secondary gain, where consciously you're like, I want to heal, but if there's any subconscious part of you that doesn't feel safe healing or is benefiting from you being sick, you're going to hold on to that. The subconscious is never going to outperform your own self-image or what it deems safe. So there was big parts of me that I didn't even realize. And had you told this to me, I would have been like, you're high as a kite, you're out of your mind. But like some parts of me were actually benefiting from being sick. So what did I have to do? I had to start using my voice. I had to start saying no. I had to start setting boundaries. I had to start doing what was right for me versus what was right for everybody else. And when I did that's when the 20% really like clicked in and came online. And I could say that not only is the autoimmune condition in remission, but the fear of getting sick was also put in remission too.
Wow, that is incredible. And I've been getting, since yoga training and before that, so into the mind-body connection and how you can really make your physical body sick by the things going on in the mind. But you can also heal. I remember seeing somewhere that you mentioned that your body is like the greatest self-healing mechanism ever. Like the body's a miracle.
The body's a miracle, and your body has the ability to heal itself, right? We have an innate capacity to self-heal. We just have to figure out ways we're interrupting that process. And some of them are physical. And, if you're like mainlining like a 30 rack every night, you're not putting your body in optimal healing mode, most likely. But also we can like weaponize ourselves against ourselves with our thoughts and with our beliefs as well.
Right. So in 2018, you start the Funk'tional Nutritionist podcast, which again, this is a time now podcasting, I know from my own experience, it really starts taking off in 2014-ish, but in 2018, it's still not like super duper mainstream. And so here you are doing something that's not super duper mainstream, talking about stuff that is also not mainstream. So why did you want to do the podcast, and what did the early days of it look like?
Yeah, there wasn't like a whole lot of strategy. I wasn't like doing like a lot of research about it. I was just like, give me the mic so I could take it away. I was like, I have stuff to share. Yeah. There's this platform where I can share it. Cool. Yeah. There wasn't like a whole, like I wasn't like the man with a master plan. Yeah. I was just like, let's just do this. And I think because I believed so strongly in what I was saying, and because I felt that there was a real need, and I'm like, I'm the person that has to share this. I think that's part of the reason that it took off.
And so what were the other parts of the business that you had at this point, aside from the podcast?
So I was working one-on-one with clients. Okay. And then also creating group programs as well. So I would be taking, because I maxed out with group clients. I was also a full-time stay-at-home mom. So I was like managing kind of a lot during this season of my life. So I would work one-on-one with clients. I maxed out with that. And so, but with the podcast, there's a lot more people that wanted access to the work. And so I started creating group programs so people could access the same stuff, but just in a group program. And that is what allowed me to scale.
Is it fair to conclude that the podcast is really the reason why all the other stuff around you has popped off?
I think it was a part of it, but really where I cut my teeth was in the local community. Because I started doing nutrition programs at Three Bridges, at different yoga studios. My friend Sarah Curry, Blaze, my friend Emily at Steam House. I really was networked, and I knew a lot of people. I had real IRL relationships with people. I didn't start off virtual. My company is a global wellness brand now, and everything we do is virtual. I didn't start off that way. I started off in person. And because I kept showing up and I kept building rapport and trust with people, they invited me into their audiences or their communities. And so everything grew very organically, like boots on the ground in the local community. So when I picked up the mic, I already had a bustling business. Like I already had a thriving business. And so it wasn't starting from scratch with the podcast. That's what allowed it to really grow and scale beyond my local community.
Wow. See, that's so inspiring to hear, because I'm all about showing up in real life and making the local connections. And that'll pay off dividends for you.
Like business is nothing without real human connection.
Heck yeah.
You can't just get on Instagram and do like a little dance or like, you know what I mean? Like you can't just be like posting smoothies on TikTok. Like you have to actually connect with people beyond that too. And I train and mentor a lot of clinicians now. And we talk about social media strategies, but I'm like, go teach a workshop in your local community. Like go to a yoga studio, connect with people in person. Like people need that now more than ever, maybe.
And if you are a certain personality that people are drawn to, like you're a magnetic personality, Erin, so you need to go be out in front of people. Like being online doesn't do you justice. People will want to get in a room with you. And like, if you teach them and you have a good energy and like, you're like, oh, I really like this person, they'll keep showing up for you. They'll keep spreading the word about you because word of mouth is obviously extremely important. So everyone who's listening and has a thing, like get in front of people, go up to the events, get over that fear because it's always scary showing up to the event and just like weaseling your way into a group of people who are talking. But I love going to networking events and be like, hi, I'm Troy. What's up? Nice to meet you.
Are you good? See, I'm really bad at that. If somebody introduces me, I'll be your best friend.
Well, you're so famous at this point that you don't need to butt in. I'm still
celebrity.
I'm trying to get to Erin Holt level.
I'm really not good at like networking.
Yeah.
I'm good at building connections that somebody else like pre-establishes for me. But I would like never just go up to somebody in like a group. Like I need like a little buddy to be like, this is Erin. And then it's great. But I like need that invitation. And I'm always so impressed with people that can just like do that.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
Yeah. Wow, glad I have your stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Why do you think people were so drawn to you when you're showing up to these in real life local events where like the growth really started?
I think that I am like a pretty authentic person. Like what you see is what you get. How I show up here is how I mean, you've met me in real life a few times. Now is one of them. And like it's the same as you get on the podcast. It's the same as you get on Instagram. It's like same. And I think people feel that. And it's not because I'm like trying to be authentic. I'm just like, like raw dogging reality. Like I'm just out here saying it like it is, how I view it. Maybe not saying it like it is, saying it how I view it, saying it how I perceive it. And there's going to be some people that really connect with this. On the flip side of that, there's going to be a lot of people that do not.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Not everybody has to like me. I'm sure some people, don't. And as long as they're judging like the real me, if like you get to know me and you don't like me, that's fine. I just don't like people like judging me like based off of an assumption about me, which can sometimes happen when you're like a little bit more in the public eye.
Yeah.
But I think it's that authenticity piece, like really being able to connect with people and really feeling like what she's saying is real and true. And that's a huge connection point.
For the badass, successful women listening to this, I want to ask you this. Have you ever come across men who are intimidated by you?
I mean, they've never shared that with me.
Okay. I was curious because, you hear women talk about like, oh, men, when they see a successful, in your face, high earning woman, it makes them feel very insecure because like that's what the men are supposed to do, right? And so they might feel intimidated and then like do whatever to try to beat them down.
Should we bring Scott down here and ask him? I don't think that has been something I've given much thought or attention to. I think the internalized misogyny with women is actually where I spend a little bit more of my time thinking about.
Oh, what do you mean?
Women will want to claw you down. And I've had more experience with that.
I've never understood that. Why is that?
I think because we're conditioned to believe that there's a finite amount of success available. And if my piece of the pie is big, that means that there's less available for others. And I do think that is what we've been led to believe. I think it's absolutely not true. There's this, have you ever heard of tall poppy syndrome?
No idea.
It's this idea that if somebody gets just like a little too high, if a poppy grows just a little too tall, then we want to like cut it back to size so everything stays uniform. And it is a phenomenon that happens in the workplace, particularly with women. And I see it and I feel it And it's a shame, but it's almost like there's this like invisible line in the sand, and we're comfortable with you going to that point. But then if you step over it, if you get a little too big for your britches, then we have to like tear you back down to size. And I just sometimes there's like this like gotcha where they're like looking for the chink in the armor. Where's the entry point where we can kind of like take her down? She grew a little bit too tall. And this idea that like we get too big for our britches is like so silly to me, because like it just means like you've outgrown your pants, right? And it's like, of course we do, because we're growing and we're changing and we're evolving. We have to give people permission and grace to evolve. And that can get a little uncomfortable too. Like I'm always like, don't pedestalize me. Don't put me on a pedestal, because I know how that goes. Like the second you put me up there is the second that you're getting ready to shove me off. And I just let me exist. And if what I'm saying lands, like great. If what I'm saying feels like medicine to you, awesome. And if it doesn't, then okay, just like keep it moving a little bit.
All right. So the Funk'tional Nutritionist podcast was going well. You're going to these events, and that's probably converting to some business as well. What was the next step in the growth of the Funk'tional Nutritionist?
I mean, it just kind of snowballed from there. And I just continued to build more programs. And so more people could access my work. It was really important to me that our practice now, it's an investment. I'm very heavily educated. I hire very educated people. We spend a lot of time and money in our education and in our clinical knowledge and experience. But it's important to me that there's an entry point for everybody for this work, because I do believe that's important. So the free podcast, I've had people write to me that have not spent one dime saying, I was able to change my life with your podcast, change my body of health. I was able to get a diagnosis from my doctor based on what I learned on your podcast. So that's free. And then we have group programs that are a little bit more entry level in terms of cost.
And how does that make you feel when people say that to you?
Amazing. Cause like sometimes you're like you're like, is this thing on? Like,
Exactly.
Is anybody out there? You're like screaming into the abyss. So it's like, I'm like, great. I got another year of podcast in me. Any time that somebody says that, I'm like, cool, I keep going. It's like a little bit of like a battery pack for me. It's the best feeling in the world. It is the best feeling in the world hearing that. And so that's why I continue to do it. So I think just because there's so many different points of entry, things just grew. And then around 2020, two things happened. One is that practitioners saw that I was growing, and they're like, I want to do what you do. How do you do it? So I built a school for practitioners called FNA, the Funk'tional Nutrition Academy. And to date, we've graduated over 100 clinicians, which is like insane to say. Like, I'm like, I can't even believe that. Like, if you went back to like the self-flagellation, self-hatred, Erin, like 15 years ago, and you're like, don't worry, it's all going to work out. Like, you're going to train MDs one day. I would have been like, what? So that's really cool. The other thing that happened in 2020 is that, well, are you familiar with what happened in 2020?
I remember that year. Yeah.
It's a big one. And people like, there was so much collective fear, right? Unprecedented times. And we didn't know what was going to happen with the economy, with the business, with our businesses, with the world. And a lot of people froze. And I remember just being like, okay, I have a choice here. I could either cord into the collective fear, or I could unplug myself from it and be like, what if I was like a lighthouse for people that were afraid? What if I just, rather than spend my time being worried, what if I put it into serving and helping people and creating resources for people? And so I think that was, I always look back at that time because I think that was such a huge pivotal moment for my business and my brand, because people started to see me as a thought leader, as a helper, as a go-to resource for their health. And so that was something else that happened in 2020.
Okay. So you really started building out the online business and really started to scale.
Yeah, I started to scale big time then.
Okay. So let's fast forward to modern day. Take me through some of the things that you're offering. So we know about FNA, Funk'tional Nutrition Academy. There's also Manifest Your Health and Manifest Your Wealth, right?
We're doing a lot of manifestation stuff over here.
Yeah, we love that.
So we have our online clinic where we work with people on their health one-on-one. That's just like our foundational offer. Like, If you need help with functional medicine, functional nutrition, we've got you.
And what are the problems that people are generally coming to you trying to solve?
So we're not niche down, which is my business advisor is like, you got a niche. And I'm like, never. I just want to be a resource for people who are like, I have like these 27 issues. We're like, get over here, you rascal. We'll help you. We see a lot of autoimmunity. We'll see complex cases like, or complex conditions like endometriosis, a lot of digestive health, gut dysfunction, hormonal imbalance. We kind of like do it all because we're the team that really pulls it all together. So we look at all different parts of you and take a very full-bodied approach and pull it all together and help you understand the mystery that is your body and why things are kind of falling apart if they are. So we just see a lot of different cases. So that's our one-to-one. Then we do have different group programs and offerings. And Manifest Your Health, I don't want to say too much about it because it's getting a little bit of a revamp and a glow up. So Manifest Your Health is really the culmination of the past like 5 years. So it's more of the like esoteric stuff, that 20% that I was talking about earlier. We worked on the physical body. I got things good, but then I had to do some subconscious reprogramming. I had to look at my thoughts. I had to look at my repressed emotions and create practices to bring them up to the surface and release them. I had to look at my energy body and I had to look at my spirituality. And all of that is really what built my like full, robust, vital body of health. And so I studied at Stanford for a year for this compassion training. I was like, I literally have to spend $10,000 in a year of my life learning how to be kind to myself, learning how to be compassionate with myself. But through that program, I had to build a program. So like in order to graduate from that, I had to build a project. So Manifest Your Health was that project.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I took people through it and with really good results. And then I did it again with even better results. And then I did it a third time. And now what we are doing is conceptualizing a way to make it a bit more accessible to a lot more people.
I want to take something from your website and I want to read it to you and I want you to guide me through this. I want to be the change. I want to stick a stake in the wheel spoke. I want to Teresa Giudice
Judice.
Table flip the food and health messages we hear. I want the whole fucking diet industry to come crashing down. I want to challenge conventional medicine. I want women to know there is another way. It's a lot happening there. Stick a stake in the wheel spoke. What do you mean?
Just like interrupt the process. Like
okay.
we're spinning. And I originally wrote that probably like 10 years ago.
Okay.
I can tell you don't watch Bravo because you don't know Teresa Giudice, which is a crime. But how I would like modify that present day, all of that still rings true. And I think the hamster wheel that so many women are on is like collecting information now. 10 years ago, we didn't have the information that we do now. And that's like a really good thing in a lot of ways and not so good in a lot of ways. Because the thing that I hear more than anything is like we are consuming information, but we're not getting better. We're not getting more clarity. We're not getting healthier. We're not like feeling better.
It's honestly overwhelming to the point where for me specifically, I used to be super into all of this stuff, super into listening to all the podcasts and reading the books and whatnot. But for me, it reached a point maybe 2 years ago where I was just like, this is overwhelming. I don't know who to trust. And the way it's being framed, I don't like. I got this person telling me if I don't take a ice bath 3 days a week, that I'm going to die 10 years younger and that like this thing is going to cause cancer. And I'm just like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm just bowing out of it. And then I just devised my own simple like 6 health rules. And I'm very happy now. But
right now,
it's a lot.
As a 41-year-old woman, what I'm being told, this is going to piss people off. So I'm going to say it. If I'm not on a GLP-1 and HRT, then I'm going to shrivel up into a raisin and die because
sorry, what?
There goes my hormones. You gotta be there. You gotta, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
If, people listening to this, if you know, you know. Yeah. Because I'm past my prime because I'm 41. And
what do you mean past your prime?
They either put me out to pasture or you put me on a GLP-1 and HRT, hormone replacement therapy. I don't know. Point is, we're being inundated with these messages, and oftentimes the messages are contradictory, like you do this or you do this. So people are just like spinning in every direction. And dude, I did the same thing too. Like a couple years ago, I'm like, I'm going to like unplug from all of this because it's just noise at this point. It's distortion. There's so much noise in the wellness world. And I really think a big part of what we help people do is quiet down that noise by unplugging from all the external inputs and plugging back into ourselves. When you said, I don't know who to trust, totally. We have to learn to trust ourselves. We have to take the information and run it through our own set of filters to figure out what is right for us. The issue is that a lot of our filtration systems are broken. We've kind of lost the discernment. We've lost the trust in ourselves. And so we have to bring that back online. There's a big difference between just getting hammered with information and then actually embodying that into like wisdom and knowledge. I will talk sometimes about what I call the IT factor. Information plus integration is what leads to transformation. So we have to have the ability and create the space in our life to like, integrate some of what we're learning too. And sometimes you need a little bit of a co-pilot for that. Sometimes you need a little bit of a guide or a helping hand with that, especially if you're at the point where you're like, it's all too much and I don't even know what to do. So right now we're getting a lot of information, but that's kind of like, I'm trying to like stick a stake in the wheel spoke of that too.
Why have we lost the trust in ourselves?
I think there's a lot of money to be made, not to get super cynical super fast, but there's a lot of money to be made in you not trusting yourself. There's a lot of money to be made in women hating ourselves, to thinking we're fat and like fugly, like the beauty industry, huge industry, diet industry, huge industry. And so like we've sort of just kind of extrapolated that into the wellness world too, where it's like, you have to outsource all of your answers. And I'm always trying to get people to self-source their answers. I remember, this is years ago, but I was in a Facebook group and it was for some type of like wellness challenge or food challenge. And there was a woman in her mid-50s and she was literally asking permission to put a teaspoon of cream in her coffee. And I'm like, by God, how did we get here? This grown-ass woman who has no doubt done a lot of good shit in her life, because I know women, we do a lot. We can handle a lot. We're high capacity people. So I'm sure she's done a lot in her life. And she's asking internet strangers for permission on what to do with her own body. Like, we have lost the plot. So there's a lot of messages telling us that we don't know ourselves, we can't trust ourselves. So we always have to stay plugged into everybody else, external authority figures. We see this in medicine, we see this in the wellness world, we see this everywhere. And so I think that's part of the reason why we've lost that connection with ourselves and that trust.
Yeah, and we just blindly take other people's advice and realizing that like that might work for them, but doesn't work for us. Like, I don't like weightlifting. So like, I'm only going to do it 2 days a week. I'm not going to do it 5 days a week. Sorry.
Because you know you and you trust you.
Yeah.
And people are really uncomfortable with that. I just posted in my stories that back to the GLP-1 thing, I'm like, this is what I'm being told, but this doesn't feel right or true for me. And then there were people in my DMs trying to convince me otherwise. But I'm like, but you don't know me. You don't know my body. Why do you think you're the leading authority on what I should do? That's batshit crazy. Bonkers bananas. But that is like how we feel now.
Right. So for the people listening who follow their favorite wellness influencers online on TikTok and such, and who follow X, Y, and Z people and listen to the podcast and read the books, and they take the words as gospel, even though these people might not necessarily be qualified, how do you parse out what's real and what's not?
I mean, I think it's all real.
Or what's worth listening to and what's not?
I think that there's a big difference between a wellness influencer, and I have nothing, like no issues with wellness influencing whatsoever, but there's a big difference between a wellness influencer and a practitioner who happens to be on social media. A wellness influencer is usually sharing things through the lens of their own experience, like N=1. I tried this, it worked for me. let me share it with you. There's nothing inherently wrong or bad with that. I'm sure you've had friends that have said hey, try this new magnesium powder. It really worked. And you're like, cool, I'm going to go buy it. Nothing wrong with that. Whereas a practitioner who is sharing on Instagram most likely has, can understand and speak to more of the context and the nuance because they have experience not just working with their own body, but a lot of other bodies as well. And so we understand what is good for the goose might not be good for the gander. And so I can tell you one thing that could be really helpful for you, but it might not work for your friend. And so we just have a little bit of a different perspective. So I always try to encourage people to be mindful of that. Like, where are you getting in your information? And is it somebody who has experience working with a lot of bodies and has had a lot of success helping a lot of different people?
You don't need me to tell you this, but times are tough for home buyers here on the Seacoast. And in this housing crisis, I think we all could benefit from a little stability. And who better to lean on than the family that has ridden all the waves of Seacoast real estate over the last 40 years? I am, of course, talking about our friends at Samonas Realty. I was actually at Andrew Samonas' house this past weekend, the king of Seacoast real estate, as we call him on the show. And I met Andrew's two brothers, his father, John, who is really the head honcho at Samonas Realty. And as I was sitting around the fire with these guys, I was just in awe of their family dynamic. And as I talked to each of them, I realized just how much this family business matters to them and why they think it's important to treat their clients like family too. Samonas Realty is as local as it gets, and they are obsessed with helping people find not just a house, but a home. Whether it's waterfront condos, cozy cottages, downtown gems, or your starter home, they know every hidden corner of this area because they live and breathe it. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or just curious, they will guide you with zero pressure, all heart, and deep local expertise. So if you're ready to plant roots or to make your next move, please visit samonasgroup.com or stop by their office in downtown Portsmouth. Tell them Seacoast Stories sent you. Thank you to Samonas Realty for supporting the show. Now back to my conversation with Erin Holt. I want to ask you some health and wellness questions in a moment, but first, let's just talk about the business that you're running. So this is a 7-figure earning business, and it's grown a lot in the past, 7 years or so. Did you ever think that you would get to this point?
Literally, no. When I figured out that my company was making, but at this point it wasn't a company, it was a one-woman show, $80,000 a year, I lost my mind. I fundamentally came undone. This goes back to my mom married my stepfather, and he was older than her and more established and more successful. And this is in the early 90s. He made $80K at that point, and he was a rich guy. So I think that locked into my subconscious mind that that's the ceiling for myself. That's the cap, or that is a significant number. So I really lost my shit when I hit that. And I was like, what does it all mean? So I was flabbergasted and blown away that I could even do that. I could make as much as a rich man in 1992. So no, I didn't. And none of this is premeditated. I'm really good with short-term goals. I want to do this, I'll do this. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I can't map out 5 years in advance. The one time I tried to do that, I hired my first business coach. And he's like, we need to do your 5-year plan. I'm like, my mind doesn't really work like that. He's like, it's really important to do. And I was like, okay. So I did it. And then 3 weeks later, COVID happened. I was like, so that's out the window.
Yeah, 5-year plans are stupid. Don't do that.
But I wouldn't have been able to conceptualize how big and impactful this has grown. I think I would have capped myself had I tried to. So no.
One of my favorite conversations I ever had on this podcast was with Gabby Kelly, who is she was a CPA and she left that. And now she coaches moms on with their money habits. And we talked at length about women's complicated relationship with money and all the stories that women are told around money. What was or what is your relationship to money?
Well, money taps into power,
yeah,
right? Respect, self-worth. So it's not like we can talk about money, but it's like usually goes a lot deeper than that. And we're also told to not talk about money. It's kind of like gauche. It's like not really like classy. And so if we can't talk about it, we can't get good at it. So for a very long time, I felt very incapable with money. I wouldn't look at bills. I wouldn't look at bank accounts. I was like filled with anxiety. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So I just completely ignored it. Not a great approach, as it would turn out. And now it's just a way for me to access abundance. It's a way for me to just like, the other thing that I want to say that I get to do with my company is build careers for people. And not everybody does this and not everybody has a desire to do this. I mean, we could choose to outsource overseas. We could choose to work with more contract workers. I love the fact that we get to provide like 401ks for people and profit sharing and health insurance. Like that truly makes me feel so proud and so happy. Like we can do maternity leave. Like that's like a really, really cool thing. So money isn't just like, I'm going to buy another house or I'm going to be like riding on a PJ or something like that. It's for me, it's like, what is the impact that this money allows me to have on the world and on other people too. So I've renegotiated my relationship to money, receiving, and wealth, and am at a place where I don't avoid it now. I talk about it all the time and it feels really good.
It's so annoying to me that we don't talk about it openly when literally it governs every decision of our lives.
Right?
Every decision we make is some way related to money.
Right.
So we should be able to talk about it.
And it's tricky in like the health and wellness space. And I haven't received a lot of this, but I've certainly received enough of it to like share where people are like, if you really wanted to help people, you would do your work for free. And I'm like, we love women without boundaries, like boundaryless women who are just bleeding out all of the time. I did that. It didn't turn out really well. So now I'm like I love a contract. I love a clear line. I love an energy exchange. We'll provide this service. You pay us. That's the energy exchange. We both get to feel good. Like all of that feels really good to me. But there is this like sort of starving artist mentality that can come into the health and wellness space where if you really cared about people, you wouldn't like charge for your services, which is, obviously hogwash.
Right. We get that in yoga as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
You should just do it for free. I've heard it said that when you are running a business and you have employees, it's the greatest way to learn about yourself and how fucked up as a human being you are when you have to lead other people. What have been some of the biggest obstacles for you leading other people?
Codependency. Big time. Real big problem, real big obstacle. I'm navigating a lot of this in real time. And this is where I'm so grateful to mentors and advisors because they can fill the gaps of things that you're not innately good at. I'm really great at like leading a group of people like to a common mission. I'm really great like rallying people, a little pep talk turned into a pep rally. I'm great on getting a stage and talking to like 100 people or hundreds of people. Like I can lead in that capacity. Having to be a leader in terms of like CEO of a company, really, really hard for me. And so I've had to, over the past year especially, look at a lot of my relational patterns and how like my mommy issues might be showing up in how I'm interfacing with my employees. And that's been very, very hard, very uncomfortable, and like really big, deep work. I mean, we know that running a business and entrepreneurship is like personal development, like, on crack. We all have heard that before, but there's something about having a team of people that's like so intensified. So codependency is like, I need you to be okay so I can be okay. I need to make sure that you feel good so then I can like let myself feel good. So it's like over functioning to a point where you're like overly invested in the emotional states of other people, even when they're not asking you to be, and that can just create some like really funky dynamics on a team.
Can we talk some health and wellness?
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned HRT earlier. Our mutual friend, Jen DeRogers at Laney & Lou, asked me to ask you, why is HRT the new kale?
Oh my God, Jen, that's so good. Okay. HRT stands for hormone replacement therapy. And to be clear, I am not a prescribing physician. So this is not something that we do in our practice, okay? For a very long time, it was thought to be detrimental to women's health. I'm trying to like not get too into the weeds here because we talked about this ahead of time. Don't get too into the weeds. But there was a study that spanned a lot of years that looked at women's health, and basically we're like, oh, estrogen causes cancer, causes problems. So we can't put women on estrogen hormone replacement therapy. Well, then we found out like, whoopsies, we misinterpreted that data. Like holy airball. Is that the trend right now?
That's what the kids say. Yeah,
Is that what the kids are saying? Like, whoopsie, our bad. So now we recognize that this whole generation of women lost access to estrogen, which is critical for our health and our longevity and our lifespan. So now we have the right information. We recognize that hormones are super, super important and necessary. And that is good. Talking about women's health, really good. Talking about women's hormones, fantastic. My concern is that when we position HRT at the epicenter of the entire women's health conversation, which is like kind of what's happening right now, we can miss some of the really important foundational work because HRT isn't a magic bullet. Sometimes it is for the right person at the right time, but it's not going to override all the other things that you have to do for metabolic health, for nervous system health, for gut health, for like, dietary nutrient status. Like we still have to do all of those things. And what I'm seeing is that we're just treating it like another magic bullet, another quick fix. And so I love HRT. I'm so grateful to the doctors and the prescribing physicians that are making that their life's work. We need more access to it. It's a great option to have when we need, but it is not the be all end all. And we don't build a body of health on HRT. We still build a body of health on the foundations and taking a 360-degree view. Perimenopause is so hot right now.
I know it. It's
hot.
All over my timeline.
Even
I don't
yours?
know what that says about me, but
I know you have a lot of female friends. But people will be like, oh, I feel kind of run down. It must be perimenopause. I got to get on HRT. It's like, well, do you feel run down because you're living your life for every other person and not yourself? Are you not eating? Are you skipping breakfast and lunch because you don't have time? Are you mainlining caffeine? Are you staying up too late because that's the only time that you get to yourself? Like, there are real physiological reasons that you're burnt out that have nothing to do with the fact that you're 38 and all of a sudden in perimenopause. Like we really have to have the full conversation. If we're going to go there with women's health, let's go there all the way and not just have like a piece of the conversation.
Yeah. It's so hard, injuries. You know what the problem is. You know how to treat it. It's easy to spot. Like we were talking with autoimmune. It's hard exactly to pinpoint. With hormones, how do you know if your hormones are out of whack? I'm obviously a man, so like I have hormones too, but it's more front and center for women. Like, how do you know something's not right here?
Well, symptoms can be a little tricky because there's a lot of overlap in symptoms. And it's like, just because somebody has, let's say, fatigue or bloating and brain fog, like, is it an estrogen issue? Is it a progesterone issue? Is it an androgen issue? Is it a thyroid issue? Is it all of the above? Is it like, it's hard to know. So that's where I think testing can really come online and, testing your hormones so you can see what exactly they're doing.
Gut health trends. I've been hearing about the gut microbiome for the last decade, and I still don't really understand what all of that is about. So having a healthy gut, why is that so important? And if you don't have a healthy gut, how do you improve that?
Your gut influences everything else going on in your body. So it's going to influence your immune system. So with somebody with an autoimmune condition, that's like very important. It influences your metabolic health, insulin signaling, blood sugar regulation. It influences your hormones. If you're clearing hormones out properly, it influences detoxification and how you're able to process toxins out of your body. So it's really regulating everything from tip to tail, your mental health, your mood. So it's like kind of a big deal. And the microbiome is just a collection of critters that live in your large intestine and beyond, and primarily good bacteria should be there. I run a lot of stool tests on people. We are struggling in this department. Love looking at people's poop. Love that for me. And what we're seeing, like what I'm seeing really commonly is this, what we call a deficiency dysbiosis. Dysbiosis just meaning imbalance, and just low beneficial species. Like our microbiomes are really suppressed kind of collectively. So I see that as a very common thing. Of course, we see overgrowths of bacteria that we don't want there, but what can we do about the low beneficial species? Variety, variety, variety. It's the spice of life. It's also really good for your gut. Like eat a lot of plant matter and get a lot of different species in every single week.
Okay. So our collective guts are unhealthy because of lack of variety?
That's one of the things. One of the things, I mean, antibiotic use is a big one. Our exposure to toxicants is another one. The use of pesticides is another one. It's basically like modern day life is like crushing our gut. Whether or not we were breastfed, whether or not we were vaginally born, all of these things can really influence our microbiome like from birth.
For the lay person listening who has something going on with their gut microbiome, what would you advise that they do?
So like, how would they know they have something going on with their gut microbiome?
Someone like you has told them that there's something wrong here. You need to fix it.
Bad microbiome, sir. The work that we do is very, very, very individualized. So it's not like a plug and play protocol for everybody. We really have to take like you as a human being. And it's not just, we're not just treating a lab, we're treating the human being in your whole live story, right? But generally speaking, so a thing that is very helpful is to eat a whole foods diet, right? Like we all know this, but are we doing it? And if we can aim for like 40 species a week. So this is back to that variety, which sounds super overwhelming. But if you think about like spices and herbs and teas, like you can do that. You can definitely do that. So 30 to 40 species a week. And you can be plant-based. I eat animal protein. I was a vegetarian for 20 years. I had to bring animal protein online to like feel better. So I don't think plant-based means animal exclusive. Just eat a lot of plants. And that's going to really feed the beneficial species in your gut. These beneficial species release beneficial products, which help our whole body. But it starts with our diet and our food.
Yeah. So to our point earlier about everybody is different. What works for you might not work for me. Do you think there is a diet, a number one clear tried and true diet? This is the best diet, or do you think it varies?
I think it varies. I think like probably 80% of the population can get away with something. And then we have, you know, individual little nuances and stuff. Like I can't eat gluten. I can't eat casein. That's a protein in cheese. So I'm gluten-free, dairy-free. That's like my bag. But for the most part, I really like more of a paleo template, especially if somebody's navigating some like specific. I'm not big on labels just in general, but like, you know, most people know what paleo is. I think we can also add legumes to that for some people. So beans can be such good microbiome food. Not everybody can tolerate them. And then grains, different people have different tolerances to grains as well. But it's like, you know, eat fruits, vegetables, meats if you want to. If you don't want to, make sure you're getting other protein sources in because that's really important. And also eat to regulate your blood sugar as well. When I was working, especially in the beginning with women on their health, we would have to spend the first month of our work together just dialing in blood sugar basics because we'll skip meals or we'll eat like a piece of toast in the morning. Like you need to eat throughout the day, 3 solid meals, maybe some snacks. Don't skip breakfast. Don't just like pound coffee and then wait 3 hours. Don't just eat a bar for breakfast. Don't just eat a bar for breakfast. Oh my God, I ate a bar for breakfast today. I was nervous about the podcast. Don't do that. Usually I'm way better about eating a full meal of food. So eat to establish blood sugar, and that will take you really far.
Can I tell you something that pisses me off?
Yeah.
As a diabetic, you know, I wear this badge of honor, this continuous glucose monitor. And so when I see other people out and about wearing one, it's like, hey, we have a thing in common. Let's talk about it. Because it's so, if you don't have diabetes, you just don't understand. You will never be able to. So when I see someone out in the wild and we can talk about it, it's so cathartic. But then every now and then I see one of these fuckers wearing a continuous glucose monitor and they don't have diabetes. They're doing it just for funsies to manage their blood sugar. One time I was in Miami a few months ago and I ran into one of these girls and she was freaking out because she ate a cupcake at 2 p.m. and she could see her chart and that she went from, 92 to 140 for an hour and then went right back down to 92. And I'm just like, I wish I had that problem.
That's child's play. Well, maybe I could offer a reframe if you'd be open, because
Please.
I think CGMs can be useful. Before they were only available to diabetics, right? We didn't have access to them. Now we do. And we'll leverage them sometimes in practice if somebody's really struggling with insulin resistance or just managing their blood sugar on their own, because it's so crucial to overall health and to hormone health. Like if you want to balance your hormones, you got to balance your blood sugar, babe. Start there. And so it gives people real insight into what their body is doing. I don't think people need to necessarily use them all day, every day, forever. I did a stint, maybe 2 months. I got some good information and that's that. I think where I get frustrated with CGM sometimes is we can get too keyed into external data points, and that can take us outside of ourselves. We really should be focused on internal data points. How does this make me feel? When I eat this, how do I feel right after? How do I feel 2 hours later? But again, we've lost that communication with ourselves. So sometimes a CGM can bring that communication back online. So I do really like it in those scenarios.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
So as I told you, I kind of got out of the whole health and wellness sphere. Too much information. The simple rules I distilled down for myself. I want your take on this. So get sunlight every day, get movement every day, have purpose in your life, eat a whole foods diet, breath work, and have really meaningful friendships and relationships. And that's pretty much the key to good health for me.
I love that. How about gratitude? Can we throw some gratitude?
Gratitude's good. We love
Let's
that.
Let's get as cliche as possible. Gratitude is such a healing frequency for your body though. And so many of us unbeknownst to ourselves, not even conscious of it, operate from a place of lack, not enoughness, keeping up with the Joneses. I need to be doing more. I need to be pushing myself, especially highly ambitious people, right? And so what has been such a game changer for me, and I'm not always good at it, and I have to constantly remind myself of it, but just to be so appreciative of what's right in front of me. And then on more of an esoteric level, I just feel the universe, the powers that be, source, creator, they're not going to give me more if I can't be so appreciative of what's right in front of me. So I love big goals. I love big ambitious goals. I love growing. I love it all, but it's really important to be this matters too. What's right here matters too. So I think gratitude, it's been shown to increase secretory IgA levels, which is an immunoglobulin. It does some really cool stuff. It puts the body in optimal healing mode, but then it also just makes you appreciate your life more, which is pretty good.
That's pretty good. Anything else I should add to my list? Gratitude. Is there any
I love purpose. That was I love that one.
That's a good one.
That's a good one to.
Yeah, because then that's tapping into happiness and again, mind body connection. It's all connected. So
you said sleep.
I should have said sleep.
You should have said sleep. Yeah, I'm an 8-hour baby. I need a full 8 to feel normal. But our mental capacity obviously goes down without sleep. Yeah. Our ability to regulate our blood sugar can be really impacted by sleep. If somebody's is on a weight loss journey, I'm start with sleep. It's the foundation for everything.
They probably look at you like you're crazy. What do you mean sleep? Tell me I need to go to the gym 7 days a week.
Yeah, it's just our appetite our appetite hormone shift when we're underslept, and we'll be hungrier too. So sleep is foundational.
Yeah, your discipline goes out the window. I know after a day of 5 hours of sleep, I'm my attention span is completely shot and I'm just on my phone all day.
Yeah, it stinks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have 2 more questions for you, Erin, and I thank you so much for allowing me in your lovely home. So way back when, as you were going through your 19th college, you felt that you didn't quite know what you were doing with your life. You were comparing yourself to your friends and such, and you didn't ever see the path to getting to a point like this. So as you reflect on the road up until this point, what emotions come to mind for you thinking about where you used to be?
I might cry because I just wish I was like kinder to myself. I mean, like coulda, shoulda, woulda, 2020 hindsight and all that. I feel really, really, really proud. Like really proud. Proud that I listened to myself, proud that I did it my way, proud that I didn't let external people, dictate my path. I feel very, very proud and grateful. I also have to like shout out my husband. He's like a really good husband and support system. And I don't want to say I couldn't have done this without him because like I'm pretty tenacious. I probably could have, but God, it's a lot better and more enjoyable and easier with him. So he has been such a huge cheerleader support system. And that's like crucial, having like a solid partner. So I have to like shout him out and really, really proud that I picked him. Some people are like, you're so lucky. I'm like, I didn't like trip and fall into a marriage.
Shout out to the Portsmouth Health Food Store, right? where relationships are made.
And also I had a level of self-worth where I'm like, I deserve to be treated a certain way. So I'm going to seek out a partner that treats me a certain way. Like, I feel like sometimes that's lost in the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a whoopsie. It was very intentional. So yeah, it's a lot of pride that I was able to chart my path forward.
That's incredible. I did want to ask you another thing that just came to my mind. You mentioned ambitious goals. What else are we working on, Erin? What's coming down the pike?
I'm in a bit of a phase where I'm like, I need a pause. Like I get a lot of what I call divine downloads. Like the next idea just drops in. Yeah. I'm not like thinking my way through it with my conscious mind. I just create the space and then the next invitation arrives. And so I haven't had a lot of space. The past year has been very full, very busy. We restructured my entire team, my entire company. So it's been a lot, super intense. So I'm really looking forward to having some time this summer to let the next big thing land. Right now, what we are doing is we are scaling the one-to-one, our one-to-one services, just to be able to make that more available to more people. We were pretty maxed out for a while there. And so we're opening up more spots with that, which is very exciting. And then as I sort of teased out, Manifest Your Health is going to be shape-shifting a little bit into a platform that's a lot more accessible to folks. And that is the big stuff that I'm cooking up right now.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to see it come to fruition. Erin, thank you so much for joining me today. We have one final question. We ask this same final question at the end of every episode every week. And I will ask it to you, Erin.
I'm so nervous.
If you were to leave this earth tomorrow, what would you hope people remember about you?
Why is this making me cry? Like she did it her way and that worked. Like that is the big thing. The imprint that I want to leave is I want to show people their power. Like you are so powerful. You have so much magic in you, and we dull it when we listen to everybody else, and we have to like spend so much more time. The most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. So curate that. Have so much reverence for that. And whether you're on a health journey or like a business growth journey, like keep coming back to yourself. So I want people to know and to see that I did that. I want to be a model of that and really show people their power, show people their own magic, and like let people light their own path. So hopefully people see me and that's what they think of.
I think you're doing that. I am super inspired by you, and I know everyone listening is as well. So keep up the great work. Thanks for being here, Erin.
Thanks for interviewing me right before I had my period, so I cried a bunch. This is great. This is great.
That is the one and only Erin Holt. For more from Erin, I strongly recommend you check out her show, the Funk'tional Nutrition Podcast, for a free window into one of the Seacoast's brightest minds. Or if you want to work with Erin and her team directly to get to the root cause of some of your health issues, then you can visit thefunctionalnutritionist.com to learn more. Links to both of these are in today's show notes. Thank you so much for listening. And a reminder that if you would like to support this show, there's a couple things you can do. You can follow the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or you can tell a friend about the show. As I said on last week's live show, this is now my full-time gig, and any bit of support goes a long way. I'll be back next week with another very informative and entertaining conversation with a dear Seacoast friend. But until then, if you see me around town this week, perhaps at the Buoy Shack, Lil's Cafe, or on the water with Portsmouth Paddle Co., then please stop me and say hi. I would love to hear your story. Until next Monday, everybody, have a great week. Live free or die.